So a little over a year ago, we decided to quit our jobs, got rid of almost everything we owned. We packed up the rest and headed south here to Guatemala. Looking back now, that decision didn't come from just one big moment. It definitely came from a lot of small things that just didn't feel right anymore. And one of those being just the cost of living in the States.
Yeah, the cost of living felt like this mounting, ongoing pressure in our life. And we had the thing, right? Like we had the jobs, you know, the really great apartment. We were living downtown in a relatively safe area. You know, like we were doing the dream, as you would say. Like we were checking the boxes, and we still felt like there was like an unattainable side of our life that we were not able to get to because the cost of living was just so high.
We were struggling to just enjoy, life without spending all of our money on bills. And we had the good paying jobs and with a rent discount even, because thankfully we had that through our work.
Yeah, we had great jobs that we were able to get a rent discount for work, but it was still...
We felt like we didn't have the time to go out and spend time with friends.
But if it wasn't the time, it was the money.
Correct. Well, that's what I meant. We didn't have the money to go out and spend time with friends, but on also the time, which we'll get to in a second. But how much money did we spend on just car repairs?
Oh my gosh.
In 2024.
Yeah, in 2024, we paid to get my car repaired like a few times, and it probably cost us over $6,000.
Yeah, it was over $6,000 in just 1 year.
It was a used car.
And it wasn't in that bad of shape.
Yeah,
I mean, it was a 2016. And so it got really...
But you have to have a car. To have a job.
Have the job, to pay for the car, to get anywhere because of the public transportation, which is not even...
Yeah, that's a whole nother thing.
And
it was just an exhausting cycle that we kept finding ourselves in. Was like, if we had the time, we didn't have the money. And if we had the money, we didn't have the time because we had to work to make the money. And so it was just this vicious cycle of just like saying no and missing out on things in our life because we couldn't afford to do things like go to concerts with friends because the tickets were hundreds of dollars, or like, pay for plane tickets because we're avid travelers and that's something that we enjoy.
Yeah,
and we were barely putting away money to save for vacations and tickets and like activities and experiences that we wanted to have. And that was draining a lot of like the joy and the purpose that we wanted in our life because it just became increasingly more difficult to save money. And we haven't even really talked about like, normal bills, like food and cell phone bills and Wi-Fi and heaven forbid you have subscriptions,
Right, because we lived in Cincinnati, Ohio, or at least, outside of it, within the greater Cincinnati area of Ohio. And that's a very good cost of living state, right? It's very
Ohio
affordable.
Still has one of the cheapest cost of living.
And we couldn't afford any of the local farmers markets or any of the grocery shopping we had close by to us. So we had to go get in our car and drive 20 minutes, 30 minutes to do all of our shopping at an Aldi or a discounted store, a lot of
scratch and dent,
trying to find bruised produce,
bruised produce
for the cheap, right? And because even just eating healthy, and we love to eat healthy. We live a very active lifestyle, but
it was becoming almost unobtainable to eat and shop responsibly and like healthily for us.
Thankfully, we live a very frugal lifestyle. We love to save money so we can travel and spend the money on experiences and not material things.
We're very lucky.
When you live in a country where every single year it gets harder and harder to not only just pay the bills, put food on the table, but to also experience and enjoy life outside of just the normal. Go to work, come home, put together a cheap, affordable meal for your family, and then go to sleep and do it all again. And like that was just something that I had to get out. She said before, we're both travelers, and so the pace of life in the States did not agree with us.
Even when it wasn't work related, we felt like everything was just quick and in a hurry. The pace of life in the United States is very much like that. Point A, point B, you're rushing around, trying to get things done, running errands, fitting everything into your weekend because you only have a limited time where you're not working 40-something plus hours a week to try to get your life in all of this.
We do not come from money. We have had every job in the book,
Yeah.
probably. But I worked a lot in social work back in college, and after that, a lot of bartending and restaurant work as well, but a lot of nights and weekends.
Yeah.
And this most previous job, recent job that I had in Cincinnati, I thankfully did not have to work every single night and weekend, but I was on call
On the weekend.
And so it felt like the work was never ending. Life was so fast, life moved so quickly there, and that I was just trading all of my time for income, and that the income was slowly dwindling.
Still
not enough.
Yeah, it was just really that kind of pace of life that wore on us too.
The limited freedom.
Yeah, the limited freedom that you feel like you have because everything you do is supporting the lifestyle so that you can climb the ladder or get to your next position or get promoted or like so that you can make more money so that you can afford to have a better life. And it was just like, yeah, we wanted to slow down. We wanted to separate ourselves from the idea that we had to be, grinding all the time, that we were always pushing to be and do the next thing and achieve more and make our parents proud and all of that.
And because there's not just a consumerist mindset for buying material things in the States, but almost a consumerist mindset where like you can't just be still.
Yeah.
It's almost what am I trying to say? It's not encouraged. It's discouraged.
Yeah.
To sit still, to enjoy the simplicity of bird watching, of slowing down and having, or at least having the time to get involved into a community, get invested in volunteer work. And because back in the States, I didn't have enough time to get involved in my community or do volunteer work because we were barely scraping by to pay bills and to remotely even try to set out on a new goal of ours, which would be the content creation. And so
content creation was something we were really interested in, and it just felt like we never really had the time to get invested into it because we were trading our time for the 45 to an hour commute to get to the job that we could pay for all of our activities with. And that felt really heavy on us as well because the lifestyle that we were working so hard to achieve wasn't even giving us spend time enjoying our hobbies, our interests.
So we moved closer to our work, in Cincinnati. And so that cut our commute down so significantly. She was able to walk to work, which was amazing. But that came with the safety factor, right? Because
so living in a bigger city meant that we were experiencing more risks. There's more guns in the United States than there are people. And that was a very real realization for us when we moved downtown. We, lived in the country before that. And when you got home, you were in your own little space.
Right.
But when you go downtown, you're in everybody else's space. And, safety is relative and it's also perspective. So this is, very broadly speaking, but I did not feel safe in the United States.
I was going to say,
female.
I didn't feel comfortable with you walking around even after any time in the afternoon by yourself.
No, as soon as the sun started going down, I was like, sorry, you're walking mango. Again, you can go anywhere in the world and safety can be a concern anywhere. But in my own country where I spoke the language.
And we lived in a relatively safe area.
Yeah.
And we had next to our apartment building where we parked our car, we got broken into three different times.
Within 6 months.
I was going to say, not even 5 months.
Yeah. It just became a pressing concern for us over time that we didn't feel like it was getting safer.
Yeah.
That we didn't feel consistently more safe. Again, going back to the cost, our car got broken 2-3 times. That cost us money.
Yeah.
And so that brought down, our ability to do other things. It's just this sick cycle.
We moved back in with my parents because it was significantly safer, but then that comes with the farther commute. And so, although Guatemala here isn't the safest country in the world, there's so many places you can be here in the community, walking everywhere you need to go. It just feels so much safer than anywhere that I've been back in the States that I could live.
Yes.
Right.
And I've traveled a lot in the United States, and I did not feel safer in any singular location. So for me, it was a universal feeling of just having to watch my back and having to ask myself if I locked my door and my windows in my car. And when we moved to Guatemala and we came here, I felt the difference. I felt relieved.
Yes.
I felt safe, and I don't even speak Spanish, Right. But I just felt like I was being treated with more kindness, more friendliness.
And of course, there's plenty of incredibly nice and kind and comforting people in the States. I like to think that most of our families are some of
those people.
The kindest, nicest people there, you know, but everyone is still almost out for themselves. It is not community minded. And in
That's part of the culture.
The state of the affairs right now in the US is not breeding unity. It is not breeding community. And so it's just such a toxic way of thinking, and
it just kept us in this perpetual state of like trying to survive. And when you stay in survival mode for so long, you know, that you just want to take a break and relax and just reduce and simplify your life. And that's what we did. That's why we left.
We left and we chose a simpler, slower, safer life here. And you know, that also comes with, of course, plenty of privilege.
Yes.
Right? We had the ability to save up enough money, even with the incredibly high cost of living.
And we know that this lifestyle is not for everyone, that this choice is not going to be something that everybody can choose or
not everyone can get up and leave the US.
Yeah, and it's a difficult and really hard and emotional decision. And so that's why we wanted to share why we wanted to move abroad and we wanted to change our life and do something different, because for us, it just wasn't enough.
Right.
You know, what the United States culture and pace of life and cost of living and safety, it just was not good enough for us. And we felt like there had to have been another option. And this worked for us.
This worked.
Yeah.
So we're loving it here. We're so happy. You know, there's plenty of questions to answer about, you know, how long where we will be and where we will be. But we knew and know, even when we got married, that we did not want to stay in the US longer. And these are just the reasons why. Any other further comments or questions that you have, please leave them down in the comments and let us know. Ask us, because we'd be happy to answer them. This is being one of them. People ask us, why did you leave? Right.
Yeah. And there's 1,000 other reasons as well that we can talk about.
For
These
sure.
are just some of the bigger ones that we felt like we should bring up. And that seemed very relevant to a lot of people right now. These are a lot of the curiosity questions that we're getting. And so we just wanted to say thank you for being here and watching this. Thank you to all of our Patreon members as well. We are so appreciative of all you do to support us and continue to allow us to live this lifestyle. And other than that,
we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
See ya. Are you ready for a walk?
You want to go?
You want to go for a walk?
Oh, okay.
You want to go for a walk, Mango?
Let's go. Come on.